Today we're making my pattern in the Drip Tote. The Drip Tote comes in two sizes. Size A is smaller and can fit your laptop or a small to medium cat, and size B is much larger and can fit a week's worth of groceries for a singleton or a coupledom. I'll be making size B for this tutorial. Each size has two cutting options, full pattern pieces or half pieces to cut on the fold. Full pieces make cutting easier, but use more paper, so pick whichever works best for you. For this tutorial, I'll be using the cut on the fold option for size B. If you're using Mac, I recommend opening the PDF using Preview rather than a program like Acrobat Reader because the print margins are different. In Preview, manually change the print scaling to 100%. Print the first page of the pattern and measure the test squares to ensure the print scale is correct. Then print the rest of the pattern. Let's put it together. Cut off the left and top margins of the paper. I like to do this 5 sheets at a time with an X-Acto blade and a ruler on my cutting mat, but scissors are fine. Next, grab a glue stick and start assembling. Align the triangles at each joint as you go. If you reach an edge without a triangle, that's your cue to move down to the next row. The page layout differs for every variation of the pattern, so refer to the instructions pages 4 through 6 for guidance. Once the pattern is glued together, cut out the pattern pieces. You will have one piece for the front and back, one for the bottom, and one for the drip applique. Let's cut out the fabric pattern pieces. Size B on 44-inch or 114 centimeter fabric with cut on the fold pattern pieces is the least straightforward version to cut out, so that's what I'm doing today. To cut out the front, lay your fabric completely flat and open. Fold one side over so that it overlaps about 13 inches, keeping the fold as parallel to the fabric edge as possible. Place your pattern piece with the cut on the fold side aligned with the fabric fold. Cut the pattern piece and make sure to transfer all the notches to the fabric. Rotate the fabric 180 degrees and repeat these steps to cut a second piece for the back. Fold the fabric over one more time to cut out the bottom piece on the fold. Mark all the notches onto the fabric. Repeat these steps to cut out the front, back, and bottom for the lining. Lastly, let's cut out 2 drip appliques. We will be basting the appliques to the bag with adhesive for sewing. You can use either a double-sided iron-on adhesive or a glue stick. If you are using a double-sided iron-on adhesive, then following the package instructions, apply the adhesive to the back of the fabric and then cut it. However, if you're using a glue stick like I am for this tutorial, then go ahead and cut the applique without adhesive first. Lay the fabric flat and open. Place the drip applique as far into a corner as possible and cut, again marking all the notches. Don't worry if it's not perfect. I am using a small rotary cutter, but if you're using scissors, try outlining the shape of the applique using a washable marker or tailor's chalk and then cutting. Rotate the fabric 180 degrees and repeat for the second applique piece. Let's attach the applique to the front and back pieces of the bag to prepare it for sewing. Lay the front of the bag down, right side up. Then lay the applique down on top, also right side up, matching all the notches. Once everything is aligned, fold back sections of the applique to expose the bottom, and apply glue to the bottom of the applique. Use a good amount of glue so that the fabric doesn't move while you sew, but use light pressure as to not warp the fabric. Lay the applique flat against the front piece, and press using a few steam bursts from the iron. Once this cools, it sets the glue. Repeat this process for the rest of the applique, and then again for the back pattern piece. It's time to sew the applique to the front and back pieces. Set your machine to a blanket stitch. For the size A bag, I use my machine's default settings, 2mm stitch width and 4mm stitch length. For size B, I'm switching to a width of 3mm and a length of 4.5mm. You may want to pause and practice on some scrap fabric to figure out what size, length, and width you want. Position the fabric so that the needle lands just outside the raw edge of the applique. On my machine, aligning the fabric edge to the right side of the center line hits this spot perfectly. You will need to pause and lift the presser foot to swivel and move the fabric around several times, especially at the curves. Keep the fabric as flat as possible by rotating the entire pattern piece. This will make for a smoother stitch. Rather than using a blanket stitch, you can use a satin stitch, or even a 1.5 to 2mm straight stitch about a millimeter or 2 inside the applique edge, although the straight stitch will be harder to transition smoothly around the curves. Repeat these steps for the back piece of the bag. Now let's bring it together. Lay the front piece on top of the back piece, right sides together. Match the notches on the sides and sew with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, making sure to backstitch at the start and end of your seam. Take the bottom piece and right sides together, align the notches at the sides and middle of the bag. Pin the seam allowance about 1 centimeter in, then sew. Repeat these steps for the lining fabric, and we're in the home stretch. Insert the lining bag into the outer bag, right sides together. Match up all the notches and pin or clip the lining bag to the outer bag. We will be sewing all around the perimeter of the handles with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, leaving one side of one strap open 4 to 6 inches and leaving the tops of the handles open 2 centimeters. After sewing, clip the seam allowance, especially around the curviest edges of the bag. This will ensure having clean edges once we turn the bag out. At the 4 to 6 inch opening, I like to press the seam allowances open as this will help us close the bag later. After clipping the seam allowances, reach through the 4 to 6 inch opening and pull the bag right sides out. This will take a little bit of finessing, just make sure not to pull too hard. You may need to use tweezers to pull out the handles. I am using a hemostat, which I originally bought to help with my jaw surgery recovery, but has turned out to be an excellent sewing tool. Once the bag has been turned out, the lining will be hanging loose. Tuck it into the outer bag, then use an iron to neatly press the edges. To close the 4 to 6 inch opening, I'm using hem tape. You can also hand stitch it closed or leave it as is, securing it later when we edge stitch around the bag. Let's attach the handles. If you're sewing with the Tote Oro applique set, attaching the handles across the front and back looks a lot cuter. But sewing the handles this way is much more practical, especially for size B. In either case, put the handles the outside of the main fabric against the outside of the main fabric and sew with a 2 centimeter seam allowance. Press the seam allowance to one side. Trim all the seam allowances except for one piece to 1/8 inch or 5 millimeters. Then, taking the remaining seam allowance, fold it over itself twice so it overlaps the handle seam and press. Top stitch this down. Repeat for the other handle. Finally, edge stitch around the perimeter of the handles about 1/8 inch or 5 millimeters from the edge. And that's it! You've made a drip tote. I love this bag and how versatile and customizable it is. Follow my Etsy for more applique releases and tag your creations with #DripTote and tag me, Middle Stitch Co.